How's it going, everybody? Welcome to episode number 14 of the ChiTownPod. It's just me again today. We're hoping to get Thomas back sometime next week. Maybe not for the Monday episode, but hopefully for that Wednesday episode, and then for sure, probably for the Friday episode. So you're stuck with me. No Frank today. He's busy. He's got school. So it's just me today. And I'm going to be talking about the Blackhawks' recent stretch of games and really what the Cubs' plan is the rest of this offseason heading into spring training. So with that, let's get right into it. Last night, after the game got postponed, Blackhawks with a tough 3-0 loss to the Sabres. I mean, when you're fielding an AHL roster, there's really nothing that you can. There's nothing big to hope for when half the team, well, not even half the team, probably 3/4 of the team is full of fourth liners. So tough loss to the Sabres. Sabres are on the upswing. Obviously, I thought they'd be a playoff team this year. How I don't know how many points they are out from the postseason. Let's take a look here. Yeah, so they only had 44 points. I thought they would have pushed for the playoffs this year. They pushed for the playoffs last year. I thought they'd take that next step, but they just really haven't. And I thought they'd be better, but they took care of business against the 31st place Chicago Blackhawks last night. As you can say, it's a tank win, really. Even though there was, I caught only parts of the game, but there really wasn't any great play from anybody. I guess Vlasic's always consistent. I was hoping for something from Reichel. Just haven't really seen it from him. I'm not scared just because of a sophomore slump that always happens. But we'll see. I think they're going to give him more runway, especially next year. And then if he's still struggling and his development looks stunted, I could see them trying to unload him while he still has a little bit of value. But I think once he gets a little more talent around him, it's going to be okay. And now tonight, which is tough because they flew to Buffalo, got stuck in Buffalo because they couldn't play on Wednesday, had to play yesterday. Then they had to fly back home to Chicago after the game last night, and they get the New York Islanders, who have been okay. Nothing crazy. They are currently 3 points out of the wild card spot, which is where the Tampa Bay Lightning are. Tampa Bay Lightning have been on a recent surge here, which is not good for us Blackhawks fans because we have the Lightning's first round pick. I was hoping they'd be around the 12 to 13 range. If the season ended today, they're it looks like, according to Tankathon, their pick would be the 15th pick. We'll get into that in a little bit. But really, what to expect from the Islanders? They have one of the best goalies in the league in Ilya Sorokin, and one of the best forwards in the league in Matt Barzal. So we will see how that goes tonight. I think Mrazek's starting, and I don't think there is a lineup change. That game is puck drop 7:30 Central Time, 6:30 Mountain Time for me. But I mean, the Islanders have a strong group. Noah Dobson, a lot of you might remember, he was picked a couple picks after Adam Boqvist. Thanks, he who must not be named, also known as Stan Bowman. What year was that? I'm thinking 2018 NHL draft. That was a brutal draft year for the Blackhawks. Just looking here, Quinn Hughes goes one pick before the Blackhawks, and Bowman would have picked him too because that was when Bowman was really pushing for the smaller, super skilled type players. So Quinn Hughes goes before Boqvist, and then 2 picks after Boqvist is Bouchard. 4 picks after Boqvist is Dobson. Which, it hurts to look at because the 27th overall pick, the Blackhawks picked Nicholas Beaudin. Um, this is a brutal draft. Let's just take a look here from this draft. Jake Wise in the third round. Oh my goodness. Okay, I take it back. Philip Kurashev in the fourth round. So that was a good pick. That was a good pick. And that's it. Yikes. Not a good draft for the Blackhawks, but getting back on track. Blackhawks still without Connor Bedard. The timeline for him, they were talking about it on NBC Sports Chicago in the intermission. His timeline is looking to the middle towards the end of February. I think the earliest possible game that he could come back is February 13th against Vancouver, I think. Let's take a look at the Blackhawks schedule here. Maybe it wasn't Vancouver. No, Vancouver. February 13th against Vancouver. So really any of these games, the 13th, 15th, 17th, 19th, 21st, 23rd, and then 25th. I believe the 25th is a very monumental date for the Blackhawks as Chris Chelios gets his jersey retired and Patrick Kane makes his return to the United Center. For the first time for the first time not being a Chicago Blackhawk, which I wish I was still in Chicago because I would definitely have gone to that. But hoping for the best for Bedard to come back. It's really, I mean, if you've been watching, it's been tough to watch this team the last couple weeks with him out because Vlasic's looked really good. Phillips has his ups and downs. Kurashev is okay. But really, I'm looking at Lucas Reichel, and sometimes he's not even on the ice because his play has been so poor. So it's been tough to watch the Blackhawks without Connor Bedard. And even more so because almost their entire top nine is injured. I mean, Nikita Zaitsev, he's out, which, I mean, I'm not the biggest Nikita Zaitsev fan, but still, that's a NHL defenseman. Connor Murphy, he's out now. Seth Jones, he finally came back. Connor Bedard, out, obviously. Taylor Radish also finally came back. And Nick Foligno, injured. Just absolutely brutal injuries. It's just not even the severity, just the amount. And then Andreas Athanasiou. I didn't even click the all button here. Anthony Beauvillier out. Tyler Johnson out. Who else here? Tenorti came back. It just absolutely brutal. I didn't even click the all button on Cap Friendly, which I mean, hey, slacking for Macklin. That's what I'd like to see. Not quite there yet. San Jose is on a whole nother level of tankage, and really nothing you could do there. I mean, their roster is really bad, and their goaltending is really bad. Let's get to some good news for the Blackhawks here, as Nick Foligno and Jason Dickinson signed to identical 2-year, $4.5 million contracts. That's the AAV. So two-year, $9 million contract. And I'm fine with it. Is it an overpay? Obviously. It's obviously an overpay. But also, they're going to be almost $35 million away from, I think, the cap floor. Maybe not quite $35 million. Let's take a look. Is there? I don't know how to work Cap Friendly. I was reading. I forgot where it was. It was on Twitter that the Blackhawks will need to spend almost $30 million just to reach the floor for next year, which obviously that'll decrease with restricted free agent contracts. But it's actually maybe it was an article on The Athletic actually. And they were saying how Kyle Davidson in about 3 years is going to be remembering when he used to have all this cap space once the Blackhawks are competitive. And that always happens when you're a good team. And then same when you're a bad team, you have lots of cap space. So Blackhawks are in a really good position here. And I'm okay with both of those contracts. I think they're going to help for sure just to develop the younger players. Oh, I apologize. It was not identical. Jason Dickinson signed to a 4.25. Foligno signed to a 4.5. Both those guys are big glue guys. They're going to help the kids develop. And honestly, out of all of those veterans they brought in, those two I felt like were two that you could kind of keep around to see you through the rest of the rebuild. And then who knows? They'll both, Foligno will be 38 when his contract's up. Dickinson will be 30. So maybe Dickinson could be that third line center or fourth line center that once you finally are in playoff contention, everybody's ripping on the Blackhawks for these deals, but it's really irrelevant right now. Like, this is what they need to do. They need to get to the floor and they need to fill a roster with players to not with NHL players, so they don't have to plug these holes in with like a Colton Dock from Rockford and let him marinate and let him develop and let him become fulfilled to his fulfill his potential. I think I'm fine with these two contracts, but it does kind of mess up with their trade deadline approach, because if I were to make a list of all the Blackhawks that could be traded, it was going to be Dickinson and Foligno 1A and 1B. Right now, maybe Ryan Donato. I don't think anybody's really going to take him. Just looking, Connor Murphy, if he gets healthy, you definitely have to retain salary on that because he's making $4.4 million and he has not been very good this year. But really, that's it. The other big one here is Peter Mrazek, and we'll talk about him in a second. Coming up right after this. I'll talk about him right now. But should the Blackhawks give Peter Mrazek an extension? I think they should. I think he's the perfect bridge goalie until your Comessos and your Adam Guyans finally fully develop. I think he's solid. Is he going to win you a Stanley Cup? No. Is he Andrei Vasilevsky? No. Is he Igor Shesterkin? No. Is he a solid, probably top 15 goalie in the league? I'd put him in that 13 to 15 range. Yeah. But also for a team like Edmonton or Toronto, those teams are in need of a goalie for the playoffs. So I could easily see maybe trying to get a second out of someone for Mrazek. And that's probably on the high side. Only problem now is the goaltending market is going to be held up because there's rumors the Wild might trade Fleury to a contender. If I had to guess, he's going to Carolina. That would be my guess. Because Carolina it just seems like every year they're right there, and then it just falls apart when they make the postseason. Well, they make it through the first two rounds, and they can't get over that hump. So we'll see what happens there. And then I guess the other player I could see being traded is Tyler Johnson. $5 million cap hit, so you will have to retain something on him. As he's a free agent at the end of the year, but he's currently on IR, so we'll see what happens with that. But I think a team will really appreciate his postseason experience. You know, 2-time Stanley Cup champion with the Tampa Bay Lightning. Is he going to score 40 goals? No. Is he going to put up 100 points? No. But that's a good guy to have on your third line as he's playing on the Blackhawks first line. No disrespect to Tyler Johnson, but at this point in his career, he is a third line player. Maybe pushing second line, but that would be it. But I think maybe you could get a third out of him. But also at the same time, you look at the roster right now, like you got to fill these holes. I mean, Boris Katchouk, Zach Sanford, Joey Anderson, Reese Johnson, Rem Pitlick. It's just not going to happen. I was at the Blackhawks Oilers game a couple weeks ago. Actually, last week, January 10th, I think, January 9th, but the date's irrelevant. And there's a website. It's called Expected to Win O Meter, and the Blackhawks were almost at like 75%, and they ended up losing 2-1. And I remember tweeting at underneath that post, and I said, well, one team has Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. The other team has Rem Pitlick on power play one. No disrespect to Rem Pitlick, but you need superstars and you need depth. And Rem Pitlick, I don't know if you consider the Rem Pitlicks of the world, the Zach Sanfords and the Boris Kachuks of the world to be depth. Like those are AHL depth guys, right? Not NHL first liners and first power play guys. So I really don't know. I think if I had to guess, Davidson moves maybe one player. I don't see any big time trade for the Blackhawks. Now, what would be interesting is uh, if Davidson felt confident enough to center a package around a Del Mastro or a Nolan Allen, maybe even Colton Dock and Toronto's first round pick next or this upcoming year, or I'm sorry, next year for a Trevor Zegras. All I'm gonna say, 2019, I was Team Trevor Zegras instead of Kirby Dock. I didn't hate the Kirby Dock pick, but I was Team Zegras. Imagine Zegras and Bedard. That would be a fun team. I don't think it will happen. I don't really think Anaheim's going to trade him either. But if Davidson was going to make a big move, it'd be something like that, if I had to guess. And speaking of Kyle Davidson, what is his plan here? And I think he kind of showed his cards a little bit based on the extension he gave to Foligno and Dickinson. Is you're going to get rewarded for your play, but also he's not going to go out this offseason and find some and spend $20 million on two guys. I know the big rumor, not even rumor, but everyone wanted Nylander. I wanted Nylander at the right price. I would not have given him $11 million. I felt if you could get someone like a Nylander, it would have had to be at a 9, maybe even $10 million. $11 million is way too much. So now the headliner really is going to be Steven Stamkos. And I said if I was Davidson, I'd be like, Stamkos, here's $10 million for 2 years. He totally wouldn't accept it, but that would be my offer to him. Another big one here is Elias Pettersson, but he's restricted free agent. What I do to get Elias Pettersson on the Blackhawks? I don't think Davidson would swing a trade for him at this offseason. If I had to guess, the only way the Blackhawks get Elias Pettersson is he signs like a bridge deal in Vancouver for 2 or 3 years, becomes an unrestricted free agent. Then that's when the Blackhawks will go after him. And this is the biggest free agent. I lied about Stamkos. Brent Seabrook's contract finally ends this offseason. The Blackhawks were able to get out of the last couple years because they traded him to Tampa Bay. But absolutely hilarious that his contract finally ends this year. One of the worst contracts ever signed. Wow, that's funny. Sam Reinhart's an interesting one. He's going to want probably $10 million. Close to that, maybe a little less. But he's having a career year and a contract year. I'd be scared to sign him. And then a bunch of depth guys. This is a pretty good free agent class. I could see the Hawks going after, I don't know, even a Noah Hannafin. He's probably going to want a little too much money for Davidson. Excuse me. Sorry about that. But I could see like a Victor Olofsson, down year this year for Buffalo, been a little injured. I could see those kinds of signings. I don't think Davidson's going to be playing in the deep end in this free agent class. So how's he going to build a team? It's going to be through the draft. That's what he said. That's been his plan the whole time. So I'm going to do my who I would pick at 2 and 15, and then give you a different scenario, which I think is the best scenario. But no Tankathon Sim. We'll do that after this. But just straight up, if the draft was like the NFL draft and the season ended today, the Blackhawks would have the second overall pick and the 15th overall pick from the Tampa Bay Lightning. At 2, I'm taking Caden Lindstrom. I'm if they don't get Celebrini, I'm on Team Lindstrom, or that's really it. I don't really feel super confident in Cole Iserman. Um, Team Lindstrom is I am Team Lindstrom. 6'4" forward. I think he's going to be a stud. And then at 15, I don't know if he'll still be there. Maybe he slides a little because he had a season-ending injury. I'm taking Adam Jarachek. I I think that's the move. It gets you I believe he's right-handed. Gets you your right-handed defenseman, which they need, and I think he's the first defenseman in that like second tier of defensemen. So he's not going to be a Lev Shinov or a Dickinson, even like a Zeev Bium. I'd be happy with him. Now, my dream scenario for this draft is trading 15 and like a second, or even 15 and Toronto's first, and jumping back into the top 10, because I personally I think there's going to be a run of forwards in the top 5. And if Artem Levshinov drops to, I don't know, say 7 to 8, 7 to 9, that range, I think you have to try and pull the trigger, because I have him as the best defenseman in this class. Some people have Sam Dickinson, but big right shot defenseman, and I know that's what the Blackhawks pipeline needs, because a lot of their defenseman prospects are left-handed. And now we get to do the Tankathon Sim. 1 second, technical difficulties. All right, here we go. Tankathon Sim. So we get 4 spins, because remember last time I said we had 3 spins and I got first overall on the second try. So we get 4 spins to try and get number 1. First spin, we drop down to 3 and Minnesota goes to 1. That would be a probably worst case scenario for the Blackhawks. Second spin. Nope, I lied. This is the worst case scenario. You drop to 3 and St. Louis comes up from 9 to 1. That would be the worst case scenario. Third spin. Oh, drop to 4 and Montreal gets number 1 again. Final spin. So next week we'll only get 3 spins. Here we go. Wow, that was tough. That was not good. We went 3, 3, 4, 4. Not good at all. So hopefully that's not what happens in real life. Hopefully they're bad enough to where they are 1 and then they just win it again, and then they can still win the lottery in 2025, and then that's Michael Misa's year. But I'm getting way ahead of myself for that draft. So let's talk a little bit of Cubs now. Big news today in baseball, not just for the Cubs, as Josh Hader signs with the Astros for $95 million over 5 years. Rumored Cubs target. Everyone was like thinking that he might want to come back and reunite with Craig Counsell. No way at that number. If I had to guess, Jed offered him 3 years, $45 million. No way is he going to offer a reliever almost $100 million. It doesn't matter how long the contract is. That's just not how Jed operates. It's unfortunate. Would have been a nice pairing with Alzolay. but I mean, great contract for Hader. Congratulations to him, but that's a crazy amount of money for a reliever that probably pitches once every 3 days. Now, obviously, if he's pitching once every 3 days, once every 2 days, you're winning once every 3 days, once every 2 days. So that's good, but still, I wouldn't have gone near that number. I mean, teams would have. I thought he was going to get over $100 million, but like I said, 3 years, 45, maybe even up to 50 is the most I would have offered Hader. If I had to guess, Jed had the same thinking as that. Just knowing how he plays free agency, he doesn't like to spend recklessly. Good for Hader, good for the Astros. You got your closer for the next 5 years, as long as he stays healthy. That I'm finally we get some more big news. It felt like it went a little quiet there again. Hopefully things start picking up, and hopefully the Cubs start making moves. There are a couple guys that I think are still on their radar. They're strictly free agents. The obvious one's Cody Bellinger. Um, I I still am going to hold true that they had to come out of this offseason with one of Bellinger or Otani, or else I would have considered it a failure. And I'm still going to stick with that. The only way that it wouldn't is they would have had to sign a couple other like really nice pieces, like a Reese Hoskins and a Matt Chapman. But I think you need to go out and get a Cody Bellinger to really not only lengthen your lineup, but you need another bat in there that teams are scared to pitch to in the seventh, eighth, and ninth inning, right? Like that. That's the kind of guy that he was, right? And I think that's why you saw guys like Suzuki flourish towards the end of last year. His teams were pitching around Bellinger and pitching at Suzuki. If you can get those guys mixed in with Horner, Happ, and Swanson, I think that's a really solid team, and I could see 88 to 91 wins. Now, the new rumor among not even from a super credible source, it's just Cubs fans, but I'm gonna bite into it is Jose Ramirez maybe? No, I mean we could dream. Just the where this stems from is the Cubs were interested or were/are interested in Class A. They had talks about Bieber. There was a Josh Naylor rumor. Jose Ramirez is elite. And I mean, this guy would be instantly their best player. And if they did end up swinging this trade, it would remind me of another Aramis Ramirez. Because Jose just signed an extension. He'd be this year, 2025 through 2028. A really, really good deal, $20 million against the luxury tax. He signed 7-year, $141 million deal. The biggest problem outside of would you even give up is he has a full no trade clause. He loves Cleveland. He would not waive it, I don't think, to any team. But let's just a hypothetical. He waives it. He wants to come to the Cubs. What are you giving up? I would give up PCA and Morel for Ramirez, plus probably Alcantara and Casey. I would decimate the farm system for Jose Ramirez. That would be a full on we're going for it move. I don't think Jed is there yet. If they're gonna do a move like this, it would be probably next offseason or at this deadline, depending how the team does. But just looking at him from last year, 5.1 WAR, 24 home runs, 282 batting average, 80 RBIs. He had an OPS of 831, OPS plus of 131. I mean, all-star the last 3 years. 2020 finished second in MVP voting in the shortened year. Silver Slugger in 2020, Silver Slugger in 2022. Finished third in the MVP voting 2017 and 18. He was an all-star and a Silver Slugger in those years. This guy's just a guy who's mashed the baseball, provides really solid value on the base paths, solid defender. It's just, it'd be a home run to go out and trade for this guy. Completely hypothetical, though, because he's not going to waive it, and the cost would be too much. Jed, from what we've seen from Jed Hoyer, he is a prospect hoarder a little bit, which I respect. I would do the same thing if I was actually. I wouldn't do the same thing, but as a fan, I hate seeing these prospects go because I enjoy following minor league baseball, and I don't know. It's nice to have one of your homegrown guys become a star, but Jose Ramirez, I would trade the whole farm system for Jose Ramirez. So that's my little tangent on that rumor in quotes. But a rumor from an actual source is the Cubs are expected to be the most active team from here until spring training. Cue the meme the meme/scene from Back to the Future when Marty McFly goes, "Hey, I've seen this one before." It's just I've heard this story way too many times that I refuse to believe it. That they're gonna actually go out and be the most aggressive team. It's throughout the rest of the offseason. I mean, maybe it's just Bellinger and then a pitcher. But who knows? It leads me into a couple of Cubs targets outside of Bellinger. Reports are they're still in on Rhys Hoskins. I don't really see a need for Hoskins if you get Bellinger. You already got Michael Busch. I'd like Matt Chapman on a short term, maybe 20 per, 3 for 60. I don't think he'd ever do that. I think he wants over 100 in long-term security. A big one, though, I haven't really heard their name in these conversations for a little while, is Robert Stevenson, reliever. I'd really hope that the Cubs go after him because I think he'd be a nice addition. And then a weird one is Jordan Montgomery. According to John Heyman, the Rangers are still the front runner, and that made the most sense. But he has dropped the Cubs a couple times. It'd be a weird rotation with Steele, Imanaga, and then Montgomery and Tyone, and then Hendricks. That's 3 lefties. And then if one of the righties gets injured, you're thinking probably Jordan Wicks is the next guy to step in. So then you could possibly have 4 lefties at once. I don't know. I think he's gonna want like $180 million. And I don't think that's gonna happen. But crazier things have happened. I didn't think the Cubs were gonna get Counsell, so we'll see what happens with that. 2 more quick segments for you here. Again, sorry for the short episode. It's going to be about 35-40 minutes. It's tough to do it alone. We might get Frank on next week again, talk Bulls, and then hopefully Thomas is back. But if the Cubs don't do anything, and the Blackhawks and the Blackhawks are still bad, and the Bears don't do anything, it might be college basketball next week. I don't want to talk about college football. Everybody's going to transfer from Arizona since Jed Fish left. But getting back on topic, I need to show Nico Horner a little bit of love here because yesterday MLB Network came out with their top 10 second baseman, and I believe Nico Horner was 10. And that's just unacceptable. I'm pulling up the list right here. It was Mookie Betts, Jose Altuve, Marcus Semien, Luis Arias, Ketel Marte, Matt McClain, Andres Jimenez, Edouard Julian, Zach Geloff, and then Nico Horner at 10. I don't agree with this list whatsoever. Phillies fans are going to be crying that Bryson Stott's not on here. Bryson Stott is not better than Nico Horner. I'd put Nico Horner probably at 5. I'd like the top 2. The top 3 is fine. I'd put Ketel at 4, Horner at 5, and then probably McClain, Jimenez, Julian. No, I don't even know if I put Jimenez. I'd keep Jimenez in there. Julian. I'd probably take Zach Geloff off just because he hasn't been in the bigs that long. I'd probably put Bryson Stott at 9 or 10. But the problem with Nico Horner is everyone is infatuated with OPS a little too much now. And let me pull up Nico Horner's stats. Nico Horner last year was a 5.1 WAR player. Remember how I said I'd trade the entire farm system for Jose Ramirez? Jose Ramirez was a 5.1 WAR player. I just want to put that out there for perspective. Nico Horner, 9 home runs, 283 batting average, 98 runs, 68 RBIs, 346 OBP, 383 slug for a 729 OPS, 97 OPS plus. This is a guy where your advanced stats don't fit. Like advanced stats work for 95 to 98% of the players in baseball. They do not really work for Nico Horner on the offensive side of the ball because I guarantee you, if you ask the general manager for every single team in baseball, they would love to have a player like Nico Horner on their team. He's a guy who doesn't strike out. He doesn't even really swing and miss. Doesn't walk a lot, which that's his, I would say, his biggest downside. And he just like, he's a pest. He's annoying to pitch against. And then defensively, he's a Gold Glover. He's an elite defender. So just need to show Nico Horner some love after that horrendous top 10 list from MLB Network. And I'm going to close our segment or this episode out with potentially a couple prospects that we could see up in the majors this year outside of your Michael Busch or a Matt Mervis. Maybe I'll include Canario in my list, but outside of those guys, I'm just going to give you who I think is going to be up. PCA, I think, will be up at earliest. He wins the job outright, depending on what the Cubs do the rest of the offseason. At the latest, probably June. I don't know about Cade Horton in like the summer. I could see him coming up in late August, early September for a cup of coffee. I could also see Ben Brown coming up, making a spot start. I think he's going to make a couple starts for the Cubs this year. Jordan Wicks was already up there. A big one is Michael Arias. He's an interesting one. Right-handed pitcher, 12th ranked prospect. He converted from a shortstop to a pitcher. 65 fastball, 50 slider, 55 changeup, 40 control, overall 45 future value. I could see him coming up in a bullpen role if someone gets hurt. Matt Mervis, obviously. I could also see, if they don't trade him, Canario. I could see him. I don't think he'll make the opening day roster, but I could see him being a bench guy. Another guy I could see up is BJ Murray. He'd have to take a big jump. And it's like there would have to be Morel, Madrigal, Wisdom, and then whoever's going to play first, Michael Busch. Like 2 or 3 of those guys would have to get hurt for BJ Murray to make it up to the bigs. Caleb Killian, we'll probably see him. Luke Little, I think he'll start the season in the bullpen. I think he has the upside to be a elite setup man, and I think he might have the goods to be that guy in the bullpen. Then I guess to wrap it up, last prospect that I could see coming up is where I passed him. Maybe I didn't pass him. I could see once again. This is the same reasoning with BJ Murray. Is I got two more for you. One. I'm gonna end on a different one, but Hayden McGeary raked in Double A last year. He kind of had that Matt Mervis monumental leap through the minors. 24-year-old first baseman. There would have to be injuries for him to really come up and see the field a good chunk and get a good chunk of playing time. The one I'm gonna end on. The everyone thought he was going to be the savior of this franchise. Brennan Davis, 24 years old. I mean, man, I thought this guy was going to be a stud, and then he got hurt. Was never really the same. But it'd be nice for him to come up and be successful. I remember when he was the Cubs' top prospect, and now he's all the way down at 19. But that's my list of who I think from the top 30 is going to come up and maybe get a little bit of playing time at the Federal Landmark. But with that, I think we're going to end this episode. I'll see you guys on Monday. Most likely still just going to be me. It's either going to be a combination of just me. We'll try to get Frank on for one of those episodes, and then hopefully Thomas is up and ready from his surgery, and we get back on track with both of us on the podcast. So thank you so much. Thanks for listening.